Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the lab. So today we just finished the seventh RDL tournament, the Remote Duel League tournament by Gabe, and uh, and here we have Garbanzo. He actually got top four in this tournament and lost to me in top four. So with his nice Fluffal deck that he actually built, putting a lot of thoughts and kind of polished very well with it. So Garbanzo, you want to start introducing yourself and your deck a little bit?
Yeah, my name's Gargbanzo. I've just been playing this deck because I think it's really fun. It catches people off guard, and I don't own like any real meta decks at the moment, and I don't think there's a point in investing them. But this one's really fun, and with the new support, I thought I could make it decently competitive. And I've been doing pretty good at Gabe's tournaments, so let's get right into the profile. So you play three copies of Fluffal Dog. This guy is just a Stratos. Whenever it's normal or special summon from the hand, you get to search any Fluffal or specifically Edge Savers from deck to hand. So he's the one you always want to be starting with. And then free Fluffal Penguin. So this guy has two pretty important effects. The first one, his on-field effect, is during your main phase, you can summon a Fluffal from your hand, and that's not a hard once per turn. It's once while it's face up on the field. Its more important effect is if it uses fusion material, you get to draw two, discard one. A lot of the Fluffal cards, like their better cards, you won in the grave. So getting a free draw and then plussing on something you discard to the grave just helps a lot. And one thing, if you play this deck for a while, you'll notice you get advantage really quickly in your better hands. So, and that's because the Fluffles themselves are really good at like recurring advantage for fusion summons, kind of similar to how Shadal's are. They just do it a bit differently. And then free Fluffle there. So this thing, you can discard it from your hand in order to set the card Toy Vendor directly from your deck. And I'll get into that card more in depth when we talk about the spells. And then its on-field effect is you contribute it in order to target a polymerization in your grave, add it back to your hand. That rarely ever comes up. You're mostly just using this to set the vendor. And then the card that synergizes best with vendor is this one. Two copies of Fluffal Wings.
Oh,
So this card is
only
like
two copies, huh?
yeah. So this card's like the reason you play this deck. The reason you don't play free is because it does nothing on its own, and it's like this deck has so many searches to where three is a bit redundant. Um, you can even run one if you really want. Some builds have seen success with that. But what this thing does is you can banish it from your grave and target a Fluffle, draw one card. Then if you control vendor, you have to control vendor for the effect to go off. And then you can send the vendor to the graveyard to draw another card. Vendor has a grave effect, which allows it to search any Fluffle or Edge Savers from your deck to your hand. So this just lets you plus really hard, and it's usually something you try to establish during your combo. One Fluffle Dolphin. This is a new one from the most recent set. It reads, you can target a toy vendor in your grave, reset it, and then send the Fluffle or Sabers from your deck to the grave. So it just sends wings and puts the vendor on the field, which is really nice. You only play one because it is like very highly searchable, and you have to have vendor in the grave for it to do anything. It has another effect which comes up a little bit, which is if it uses fusion material, you can shuffle back a poly or a fusion spell that's banished in your graveyard, and I'll clean that when I get into the spell. And then one copy of Owl. This thing is kind of like an Alistair for the deck. When it's normal special summon from the hand, you get to add Poly from your deck to your hand, and then has an on-field effect of you can pay 500 life to fusion summon a Fright Fur using monsters from hand or field as material, but you can only use one effect per turn, and hard ones per turn. And then last one is one
Like,
Fluffle Sheep.
so the how is like a searchable polymerization pretty much if you don't just never
Yeah,
see it
pretty
appear.
much. Yeah, pretty much.
Mm.
And then the one Fluffle Sheep. This thing, if you control a Fluffle, you can summon it, and then you can return a Fluffle you control to the hand as cost in order to summon back an Edgent from your grave. This thing's just really good on card economy. It's like the best extender in the deck, but you already have to be ahead in terms of like the cards you have for it to be good. Like you have to have an Edgent you want to summon out of your hand or grave, and the Fluffle you want back in your hand on board. Um, and like I said, you can just search the Fluffles so many times. And then the Edgent monsters. So all the extra deck monsters require an Edgent monster plus a Fluffle monster, with the exception of one. So you need these in order to fuse. The first one you play is three copies of Edgent Sight. So what this thing does is during your opponent's main phase, you can reveal it in order to fusion summon using monsters from your hand or field. And then it has a grave effect of if a fusion will be destroyed by battle or card effect. It's just like a bailing. It's a non-activate effect to banish itself and protect it. The card you combo that with is this guy, Whale. He's also from the newest set, as is this card. If this card is fusion summoned, you can destroy 2 cards on both fields, non-targeting. So on your opponent's turn, you'll discard this and the Fluffal, ideally Penguin, because then you'll get to draw 2 on their turn as well. To summon this, you'll destroy itself and the card they control, and then you'll just banish this from the grave in order to protect the Whale. It's like, it's kind of bad in card economy, but when you consider you get Whale, which is just a big 2600 beat stick, and then has another effect that essentially turns it into an extender, I think it's generally fine. And if you discard Penguin, you don't go that -1 with either.
Yeah, I remember
3 of
you.
the
I remember you used that combo against me in top four. It's just very annoying to deal with. Like it's almost
yeah, and
impossible.
then
It's almost impossible to get your cards like low by any possible ways. Even like I interrupted so much.
yeah, when this deck gets to play, it's like very hard to cut off its card economy. And
Hmm.
then like another kind of underrated thing you can do, I'll talk about this more with the fusions, is you can summon this guy Sabretooth using a fusion you already have on board, just to just to use this as a poly basically, like when in really weird hands. It doesn't come up very often.
Hmm.
Um, 3 copies of Chain. So this is by far the best engine. If it's used as, if it's sent from hand or field to the graveyard by any means, doesn't have to be fusion, you get to search a Fright for a card. This search is like probably the best card in the deck, Patchwork. It can also search Fright for Fusion, which is a Miracle Fusion, and Prepare, which you usually don't search, but it does have neat utility sometimes. And then 1 Sabers. So this one, all of the Fluffal cards that search, so Vendor, Dog, and Dolphin Sends specifically, they cannot add the other agents. They just have to add this one. So having a searchable agent name for fusions is nice. Um, one of the fusions in the extract requires specifically this, and it's definitely one of the better ones if you can resolve it. And then if this thing's in your grave, you can return a card from your hand to the top of the deck in order to summon it in defense. And what's cool about that is it combos with Toy Vendor, which um, which basically lets you stack a card to the top of your deck and then summon it with the Toy Vendor.
Mm.
And yeah, this card's basically just a searchable agent is the big thing with it.
Yeah.
3 Gamma and a Driver. So this is like the best hand trap in this deck specifically, I feel, because a lot of your cards that they would want to ash, like, are must ash cards. Like they're just +1s. If you open like Bear Wings, you can do that combo to draw a ton of cards, go really plus without putting a monster on the field. Meaning this, a lot of the time, can just act as like a pseudo call by the grave, and then obviously go in second. We know how good it is this format. This
Correct.
could be anything really though.
Hmm.
And then 1 Artifact Site. So the combo with this is, if you remember the Whale and how I mentioned the Edgem Site and Fusion Summon during your opponent's turn, you can set this from your deck with Artifact Dagda in order to pop it on your opponent's turn and the card they control, and you lock them out of the extra deck. So that this deck does blind first currently. I don't think blinding second is viable this format, and just because with Infernoble and Dragonlink being able to loop your board breaking cards out of your hand, this is a deck that needs like 3 cards to break a board: a fusion, a Fluffal, and an engine, bare minimum. So them having the ability to loop any of those is just really not what you want. Not to mention the negates you'll have to contend with and how good Herald is against this deck.
Yeah, like
Um,
this is like pretty much the downside for almost every fusion deck in general. It's just you need three
yeah,
cards the majority of the time to even play.
yeah. There's some ways to like get around that in this deck, but there's not many. The thing that like you would play this over Shadal, for example, like they both have similar problems. This just gets around it by, instead of having like the flip effect as your backup plan and the dolls as your way to get more cards off the fusion ring, you do that just by drawing and searching a million cards.
Yes.
And like um, it's it has less of a backup plan at all in the sense that you can't just set like a Wendy and pass, but that's not getting you anywhere anyway. So, and the another cool thing about this, it hasn't really come up that often, but it you can play around like Droplets and Dark Ruler sort of, in the sense that if you set this at the end of your combo, like they're just not going to do much.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's all really about that card. So then 3 Toy Vendor. So this card does is, this is like one of the most absurd cards in the deck.
Yeah.
Um, it's a continuous spell. Once per turn, you can discard a card, draw a card, and reveal it. If it's a Fluffal card, you get to keep it and then special summon any monster from your hand. Doesn't have to be the one you drew. If not, it goes to the graveyard. So majority of the time, you're just going to be using this to do one of two things. One, either like if you bricked, just try to desperately dig for a Fluffal to fix your hand, or the more important usage is getting just the cards you want in the graveyard out of your hand. Your chain, your wing, copies of itself even. So it's definitely three of, and you will cycle through all three in a game. Um, yeah, not much more to say about that one. And then its other effect is when it's sent to the graveyard, and this is not a once per turn effect. You get to search a Fluffal or an Edgem Sabers. You can send this upwards of like 2 to 3 times in a turn to the graveyard. And it's just really good. It helps you a lot breaking boards going second with Whale, because you'll pop this in one of their cards and then you'll get a search in order to try and keep expanding.
It actually only
Then
search
you play.
sabers, right? It doesn't search any Etchin, but it only search
Yeah, it
sabers.
cannot search. None of the cards that search Fluffals can search any Edgem. They can only search Sabers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then 3 Foolish Goods. Vendor doesn't care where it's sent from the graveyard from, so this is just Rhoda. No reason not to play 3. And then 3 Patchwork. This is like almost better Rhoda. So what this thing does, if you don't know, hard once return, you get to add a Poly and an Edgem. So this on its own is just like if you draw a Fluffle, it's either OTK or VFD. And I'll show that like at the very end after I explain the extra deck and all.
Well,
3
go back.
Poly.
Yeah, go back to like Foolish Goods. I remember like when the cards were just released for Rise of Duelists, like the combo like people talking about just like single Foolish Goods. You can just go send vendor set search dolphin,
Yeah,
then dolphin.
yeah. This card on its own is just wings combo.
Yeah,
Like
you can just
exactly what you're saying.
dolphin.
You send the
Yeah,
vendor, set the dolphin.
dolphin
That's
set. Yeah,
magic.
set the vendor, then send the wings, then just resolve wings, and you like plus so much at that point.
Yeah, it's crazy if it works. Yeah, I try not to do that in this format just because like that play loses to so many hand traps. Where if you have, I think it was every hand trap in the game because dolphin can be ashed and sent from deck.
Oh yeah, correct.
And so yeah, you try not to rely on that if you can, but it comes up. Like this deck is naturally a little bit bricky, as many consistency cards as you have.
Yeah, there's so many search cards
Because
that
you'll
search each other.
Yeah, like when this deck goes off, it's very easy to extend through things. But a lot of the times you will just have hands to lose to a hand trap, and that's kind of the downside of the deck. Ash specifically, especially, like they can just ash your wings and then you just pass. And then 3 Poly, it is a fusion deck. So you played 3. I was actually testing for a bit cutting one of this, but there's nothing I'd really want to run. And like going second, you really want to see these. Whale, we played a lot of Dragma in Gabe's tournament. Like every week, I've noticed there's a lot of Dragma.
Yes.
And Whale is just absurd against that deck because it's 2600, so it gets over like the common punishment targets.
Correct.
It beats over Winda. It does it in one summon. It beats over Mechaba. Like it beats over so much. It's just a big part of how you break boards.
Yeah, also because of size, like even though they have a target bigger than 26, it's not like possible. It's not really likely. Well dies due to the size can protect it in the graveyard.
Yeah, you can just search Scythe like off your Patchwork, or hope you draw into it off of Wings or something, and then fuse with it. And then it's like, yeah, they can send their Bull Sword or whatever big monster they have. It's still just going to be protected from it. And then 2 searchable one-ofs, the Repair and the Fusion. So this is just a miracle. You banish materials from hand, or sorry, from field, and then it's a hard once per turn. In theory, the card is really good, but the problem is it only ever works if you are already playing.
Yeah.
Like unlike Vanilla Poly, which gets your guys in the grave and triggers all their effects, this does not, and it can't fuse from hand either. So you just play it as a one-of for getting off of either Verte or Chain, and then the one repair, you send this to grave with Whale's other effects. What it does, its grave effect is the more important one. You can banish it from the hand in order to summon a Fluffal from your hand, or an Edgem. And that's not restricted to Sabers. You can summon any Edgem. It came up today where I could have done, I think it was an issue actually.
Yeah, you
I could
use
have
it
banished
against
this
me.
to summon a Sight from my hand and then link away with it so that he couldn't punishment my guy because I knew he had a punishment set. But I didn't see that play at the time.
I thought your play was just banish this to summon Penguin, then Penguin summon Dolphin, plus something of Dolphin that make a rank 4. I think I Skull
Yeah, no,
Master the spell at the end.
yeah, no. At the time, no, I kept the spell for a long time. I didn't have
Ah,
the penguin or the dolphin in hand. I had just a scythe at the time,
hmm,
but that was just an interesting play to consider. And then its other effect is if you have a Fright Profusion in your graveyard, you target that, shuffle it into the extra deck, and then you reborn a Fluffal or Edgent from your grave non-targeting. So Whale also turns this on, it can send from extra deck.
hmm,
So with that, I'll probably just get into the extra deck to explain these real quick. So the extra deck is 3 Whale. So, like I said, this thing, it takes an Edgent plus a Fluffal. It's level 9. If it's Fusion Summon, you can destroy one card from each field non-targeting.
hmm,
And then its other effect is you can target a fusion you control, doesn't have to be itself. Send a Fright card from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard in order to boost that fusion by attack equal with half its original attack. So it becomes 39 if you use it on itself, which is like really, really big. And then, like I said, most of the time you're sending repair, but if you draw the repair, you can just dump a fusion from your extra deck, shuffle it back, and then use this as a reborn. So like a similar effect. And then what else was it? Oh yeah. You play 3 of this because you're gonna use 2 of them for VFD during your combo, and 1 of them for sight, ideally. You just want to have one because they're so good at breaking borders that even just having the 3 in a grind game really comes up.
yeah,
And then
the fact that this without targeting is kind of absurd. Because I thought it
yeah,
targets at the beginning, then I read it didn't.
yeah, the card's really, really good.
Also, like one fun fact when I was playing against it, I remember it's like uh if it become a target of punishment, you can just make it big enough so it won't get destroyed by punishment since punishment check attacks.
Yeah, that's
Like
another really cool interaction.
yeah, normally I would assume like all the Dogma players just send like Omega to destroy it because it's a 28 over 26. You can just send whatever in your extra that want to mean that doesn't make it more than 26. Now they if they don't have like a bigger target such as like a fusion 5 head, they just don't have a target to even resolve punishment.
Yeah, and something I should mention about all the Fluffle fusions, none of them are hard ones for turn, with the exception of 1, but you're never summoning more than 1 of them anyway.
Hmm.
So you can summon multiples of these, use the pop and the send effects all at the same time,
Hmm.
and like that's just really good for keeping your combos going and playing through boards especially. Uh, then 2 Sabertooth. You probably don't need 2 of this. I was just testing it as a 15th extra deck slot because the card I had in there before was Proxy F Magician. If you don't
Hmm.
know what he does, it's a link 2 that says you can fusion summon a monster using just monsters from your field. And then if a monster is summoned to a zone it points to, it can summon a monster from your hand with 1,000 or less attack. So that's a card I've been testing. I just wanted to try this out more because I thought it would come up a bit more. It was fine. Like you definitely want 1 of this. What it does is it takes a Fright per fusion monster specifically, plus any Edgemp and or Fluffle monster. So it's like if you have a Fright per on field, it's the most generic fusion monster. Then what it does is when it's summoned, you can target a Fright per in your grave, summon it. Can even be the same one used for fusion summon. And then all Fright pers gain 400 attack. And its last effect, which like barely comes up, but it did in a simplified game state. That
Yeah.
might have been against you today.
Yeah, you
Where if
use
it's
it
fused
against
using
me. Use it against me.
Yeah. If it's fused using 3 or more materials, it can't be destroyed by battle or card effect. So something cool you can do with this, I don't run this combo, but people have tried it, is you can Fright for fusion into this for 3 materials and then equip it with the Buster Welt for Union Carrier, and
Uh
then just make it really hard to act. Uh,
yeah.
One crack, and this guy's like the main way you would TK,
Hmm.
outside of like the Whales and Sabertooths. If you can target a monster on the field, send it to the graveyard, and then this can attack directly the turn you do that though. It can still attack monsters though. And then it can make 2 attacks. And at the end of the battle phase, after it attacks, you can change it to defense, just like a Dante. The cool part about this card is you can use it to send something to the graveyard and then bring it back with Sabertooth, and it'll be able to attack monsters again.
Hmm.
And this plus Sabertooth, just on their own, is exactly 8,000 damage. And then the last fusion you play is 1 Tiger. This is the one you need specifically Sabers plus 1 or more Fluffles for. if it's fusion summon, you can target cards on the field up to the number of fusion materials used for it, pop them. You can target your own cards with this, which kind of comes up. You can use it to pop your own vendors in really, really weird hands.
Yeah, you did
And
it.
then,
You did it against me for game one, I think.
yeah, I had to. My hand was like 5 monsters, I think, and I forget how I got to this fusion spell, but basically, and vendor obviously.
Yeah.
And I had to go into this to pop my vendor to keep playing.
Hmm.
And then uh, its other effect is that all your Frightful monsters, including itself, will gain 300 attack and defense, or just attack, I think. Doesn't really matter. For each Frightful or Fluffal monster you control. So, but you can only control one of this.
Hmm.
And I believe, I believe its effect is hard once per turn. I might be wrong. I might be thinking of the you can only control one part, but it just never comes up to 2 multiples.
Yeah.
And
Also,
then
there's also just like enough cards that destroy the board, especially the whale. So like the tiger,
yeah, like
massive destroy is not needed majority of the time.
it comes up when you don't have a card you want to pop for whale, but you still want to pop their stuff going second.
Yeah.
So like it doesn't come up very frequently, but when it does, it's pretty nice. And then Bahamut Toad, you make these with Penguin plus Dolphin.
Hmm.
This comes up like very rarely. You could probably even cut it if you wanted to, but basically this deck doesn't have any inherent ways to play around the mirror outside of like hoping you get to set sight.
Hmm.
So this can help with that. You can also summon it quite easily like later in the combo because your cross sheep will bring back a penguin who its effective summon from hand is in hard once per turn. So you summon Dolphin from the hand, um, and then turn those into these. Unfortunately, the end board doesn't have any real Omni negates. Like it's very monster heavy. So this being able to be an Omni negate is very nice. And then one Dugar is a timeless. This was something I was testing today. I actually really liked it. I'm going to keep it in moving forward.
Yeah.
So uh, in in my game with Shu, actually, I used it with this VFD in order to out a Mega Clops
Yeah.
by boosting VFD to
You
6K.
pump the VFD to 6K and beat over the Mega Fox.
Yeah, we could have gone to a game three, but I whiffed game there. I thought 6 plus 2 equals 10, which it didn't. So, but the effect that's like really relevant on this thing is
Yeah.
the draw two discard one. You're already drawing a ton of cards and discarding a ton of cards with great effects, so why not draw more?
Yeah.
Um,
Also, whatever you discard is
and,
most likely able to activate. That's like a +1. That's like a real +2 over here.
yeah, and then like the summoning back from grave never came up for me today, but in theory it does. Like to summon back penguins and keep going.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that relevant. Like I don't think you should be going for it most of the time. And then the links, one cross sheet. It's a fusion deck. Of course, you're playing this card. One Verte. Similar reasoning. It can send Fright for fusion, and that's just like a really high value line. Ideally, you against control decks, you can like bait all their disruption, and then if you still can't out their board, you just go into this, pay 2,000, send Fright for fusion, banish your whole grave for a tiger or a whale, or like if you just need extra damage, summon a kraken. It's just really versatile. Even sending vanilla poly off of this card isn't that bad most of the time.
Yeah.
It comes up in like a lot of niche scenarios, so I definitely play it. But it's one of the more cuttable cards.
Hmm.
And then one Dagda for setting your scythe. Basically, what you do, there's a way you can play around Cosmic on the scythe as well. If you want to end on this, you end on this. You go Edge Scythe on their turn, summon the whale, chain Dagda. Chain resolves backwards. You set the scythe. Since whale doesn't target, you just pop the scythe. You just set, and that kind of plays around Cosmic. So if Cosmic comes back in the meta, something to consider.
Mm.
And then on Appaloosa, you can make a lot of link material, but there's nothing really to do with it most of the time. That's like one of the reasons I was testing proxy acquisition. So this is just the best one to make with it. Your end board ideally is like this Toad BFD, and it's not especially hard to get to. The issue is just getting to it through hand traps.
Yeah. It's always the hand trap for the format.
Yeah. And then my side deck was terrible, just because it's made of like cards I own. I don't own any of the real staple cards this format. Um, but this is like what worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
One banker top because it's like insane.
Yeah.
One Lancia just to get it off of Dagda. I didn't think it was good enough to main
Ah.
3, especially for the RCS meta, but I could be
Yeah.
wrong.
I mean, for RCS, I feel like it's just almost the same as the second copy of Size, right? Has one.
Yeah, in like the Dino Invoke matchups, all those. Like
That
I'll usually keep this in oversight against Invoke, just because if you draw this,
it's not
you can
bad
just
if
keep
you
it in
draw
hand.
it.
Doesn't
Yes.
matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, free draw. This
Mm-hmm.
should like definitely be here. The RCS meta is like a lot of Dragon decks, like a lot of the Dragon Vogue. I think there's Dragon Necros sometimes. And it's like fine against combo. If I have slots, I just want I'll side this, but it's usually not a very high priority.
Mm-hmm.
uh, One token collector. There should be three of these, but I just don't own them. So,
All right,
so I played
fair.
two imperms instead. This card's terrible. It just doesn't do anything on its own.
Huh.
Like you may have noticed, I can only play 6 hand traps in this deck.
Yeah.
Um, I tried cutting it. I tried putting in 9 and go to like 42, 43 even. But I found the hand traps like inherently make your deck more inconsistent. And in a deck that needs 3 cards to combo, you can't be opening more than one hand trap. I found.
Correct.
But the hand traps you do play are really high impact.
Yeah.
Like you can just cite the Romulus or the Hulk against Dragonlink,
Yeah.
and or hit something similar against Invincible.
It's literally
But
how the
yeah,
format is. If you can focus on like quantity, you focus on quality here.
yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I'm like these are just, these are just bad like on their own. It should definitely be Token Collector because if you mill this off Ender, it's still live, which is really cool.
That's true. That's true.
3 Twin Twisters. A lot of the cards you're discarding will get you value eventually, so this is just better than Cosmic most of the time. And there hasn't been much Elbush in the RCS, so Twin Twisters is really nice.
Yeah.
And then
Also, if you can like push an OTK for a turn, then Twin is just better than Cosmic because hitting more is better.
yeah, exactly. And like if you're discarding vendors, it can even help you unbrick a hand. Um, One Called by the Grave, just because it's draw format.
Oh yeah,
Um,
correct.
yeah, I don't want to run the card, but you kind of have
Mm-hmm.
to. 2 Judgment. I mean, I couldn't really find space for a third. There should probably be a third in here.
Mm-hmm.
Going first, you just side out like you just side out the gammas basically,
Yeah,
and then you
correct.
want to put these in because you have no inherent way to play around Droplet, Dark Ruler, Mystic Mine, like Mystic Mine especially.
Oh yeah,
So this
that.
card's really nice. Like I said, the deck has a lot of trouble putting up non-monster based disruption, so this can help that a lot. And then it can also double as monster disruption in the matchup, so that's relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And then 1 Reboot. It's an OTK deck. This thing just blows out trap deck, and that's about it.
So I have like a couple questions. First is
Sure.
like you mentioned about the main deck like 3 gamma, right? Uh,
Yeah.
I feel like 3 is relatively still kind of low. Is a maybe try to fit like 6, like 3 gamma, 3 Nibiru.
Well, the scythe is your other hand trap,
Yeah,
ideally.
yeah, I guess it's fair.
It's like obviously it's kind of like a better ogre in a sense because
Hmm.
like in some ways it's worse in that it's taking 2 cards instead of just the one.
Yeah.
But ogre ogre like against a Rana system can be chain blocked. This can't.
Hmm.
Um, Usually they could play through it. I'll admit that.
Yeah.
But the good thing about the card is it's a hand trap, but it's also like a part of your end board going first, more so than a regular hand trap because you'll get the sight, and that's more impactful than just sitting on the beard going first.
One other thing is
Um,
like you don't play droplet because you just don't have them.
I just don't know. Yeah, droplets is really really nice in this deck because you can just send extra vendors
You just say almost everything is still
from your
plus.
field even. Yeah,
Yeah, because I have a friend
yeah,
actually
droplets.
played the deck, and he just told me like droplet is absurd in the deck because you almost get free droplets pretty much.
Yeah, yeah, droplets is like anything HP plus, and
Hmm.
then going first, it's obviously droplets. Like you don't mind having it.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of the when I was like looking into how to build this deck, a lot of the more successful decks, like the top LCS road tournaments, like just some Carlantra locals, that kind of thing, they were running droplets at 3, and I think that's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
They were even bumping up to 42 to have space for it, which I think is fine.
Yeah. Also, droplets give you like better chance going second as long as
Mm-hmm.
you didn't face like smoke grenade. Then droplet is always not bad because like you can
Yeah,
even just
well,
activate a toy vendor from the field. Then you can like sort of bypass around like arclight a little bit.
yeah, you can like discard a bear, set the droplets, and then like, or like you said, you just put a card on the field
Yeah.
to get around their hero. Like I'd definitely be playing it, if not siding it, if I had it. Sure.
Also, then
Um,
another thing is like, what's your opinion on like appointed Red Lotus over Judgment in the side? Because
so I
in
was
my
thinking
opinion, that's
about
a
it,
better
and
one.
so in theory, again, another card I don't own, so I haven't put like
Yeah.
especially deep theory into it. But ideally, I think droplets is a very hard card for
Mm-hmm.
this deck to play around because you have to have full combo and
Mm-hmm.
then set sight as well, which is like
Yes.
it's gonna happen. It's not unheard of, but through a hand trap, that's very difficult, especially. Even just getting full combo through a hand trap is a little difficult. But basically, the judgment being able to stop droplets, I thought was a bit more relevant than a pointer. But a
Mm.
pointer giving you like full hand knowledge, obviously, and like telling you if you can shotgun the VFD, for example, or if you should,
Yeah.
is really nice.
Yeah, because like a pointer just got reprinted in the new OTS class, so it's actually like relatively accessible very soon, I think. Because
Yeah, I'm
I
hoping
think
to
the
pick them
price,
up.
yeah, the price are not even high for that one. Also, just because like droplet, well, think about it. The interaction between a pointer and droplet is actually like very interesting. Things they have to immediately change their droplet and cost a lot of things to negate whatever you have. At that point,
Yeah, I guess that's true.
your opponent gonna rip like very important pieces since like they kind of forced to simplify the game state with you because the
Yeah,
interaction before.
they're gonna have to discard at least 2 cards most of the time, and use the droplets, and you're gonna loop them for a card.
Yeah,
So
so at
they
that
have two
point
cards to break.
they have two cards, and they obviously lost the best card because you rip it from the pointer, and that's assuming you
Yeah,
didn't even get any hand trap.
yeah,
Yeah, I think at that
and
point
then like
like
the
better than just because judgment is not just one, it's just one thing, but opponent also just give you the extra information. I think that information actually worth like quite a lot in the current format.
yeah, it's definitely something I would start testing once I get my hands on it. And then I think like the two biggest issues with this deck. Um, First off, it's a non-linear combo deck,
Mm-hmm.
so that's really good most of the time.
Yeah.
But with this deck, the issue with it is your hands will either like extend really far, or they'll be kind of underwhelming.
Yes.
All your hands can still get to like a reasonable combo.
Mhm.
The issue is just by nature of being a fusion deck, this deck is a little bit inconsistent,
Yeah.
even with all the search power it has. And on top of that, uh, if they have more than one hand trap, you usually just pass. Ash especially is really bad
Yeah.
for this deck.
Like
You
sometimes
can beat hand traps pretty well, especially against people who don't know what they're doing either with this deck.
sometimes do you even feel you have like a redundant number of access to search everything? Does that happen to you? Just like
Honestly, not really. No.
eh?
Like you rarely ever brick on just the search card.
Hmm. All right, that's fair. So, you want to show like some combos, whatever?
Oh yes, sorry about that. So
Fine.
the like I said, it's non-linear, so it's like there's not much a point of showing showing like a combo you can do every hand. But this is one that like comes as close as you can to that. It's dog plus patchwork.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't even have to be dog. This is just a VFP combo. This just gets you VFP and 3 summons.
Mm-hmm.
So you know some of the dog. You search in like if you assume your hand is just this and no other playables, you're just gonna search penguin,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're gonna patchwork for poly and chain.
Mm-hmm.
You'll poly, fuse these two off, summoning your the whale, and then chain and penguin are gonna activate. You can chain block them however you want.
Mm-hmm.
If like if I think they have an Ash, or if I would just lose to an Ash, I'll make the chain link 1,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's more optimal to search than draw, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so in this instance, like you get your penguin draws and discards, and then you would search Fright Perfusion. Fright Perfusion would activate, banishing these two, and then you summon a second whale. Before you turn them into VFD, you want to send Repair to the Grave with one of the whale's effects, and then you just overlay them to VFD, and it's pretty self-explanatory. The and then the I can show like the idea of the combo you were talking about earlier too. It that just foolish goods on its own doesn't really get you anything in
Yeah.
terms of an end board, but it like gets you to a lot of resources.
Yeah. A lot of resource.
So it's yeah, it's definitely worth it if you think you can do this. Um, so you just foolish goods the
Mm-hmm.
vendor effect to search. You get the dolphin. Let's see, there it is. You're gonna normal the dolphin, reset the vendor, and then send wings. And here's why I say like this on its own doesn't get you anything. This gets you here, which is really good, but you need another Fluffal in hand to discard. We'll
Mm-hmm.
just say I drew or Penguin would change the starting play, but it's fine. You would discard that for Vendor. You get
Mm-hmm.
a free draw or mill, whatever you put get, and then your wings will banish, send this to grave. You'll get just two random cards, and then search for whatever you want. And then this will just set you up really nicely for anything else you may have in your hand.
Yeah, this is a very,
Um,
very, very nice like starting setup. In like,
yeah,
yeah, if this combo existing in almost every deck, it will be like so absurd for a lot of them.
yeah. And then if you start with Penguin, basically the only thing that changes is you're gonna normal summon the Penguin, summon the Dolphin,
Mm-hmm.
and then overlay those two for Bahamut.
Ah,
Uh, and then you're gonna detach whichever one you don't mind banishing to a wings. And that depends on your hand, because you're gonna assume you're gonna go into cross sheet. And
yes.
this is much better to bring back off of wings, but this is much better to add back off, or to bring back off cross sheet, but this is much better to add back off of toad.
Correct.
Because you play two wings, sort of for a grind game,
Yeah,
just because if you can add this back to your hand with toad or anything like that, you can, or like summon it back with the cross sheet, you can send a second wings and reset the vendor and do it again.
yeah.
But yeah, the only thing that changes, you detach this, summon the toad, and then you're essentially like insulated from hand traps.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool, honestly.
Yeah, and then yeah, there's no real other linear combos I can really explain.
Yeah, because the
So if
nature
people
of
want
the
to try this
fusion deck.
out,
Yeah, because the nature
yeah,
of the
if people
fusion
want
deck.
to try this out, I would just recommend them playing the deck for themselves. It's kind of like Pendulum in that sense.
Yeah.
Where outside of like Pen called Dark Worm, which for this deck is like Dog Patchwork, you can't really show a linear combo.
Yeah. Right.
And yeah, that
Any
about does.
yeah, any shout outs? Anything?
Shout outs to Isaac. He's one of my good friends. He's been helping me test this deck, helping me with the card choices. Shout out to Driven Dust. He's been testing with me a lot on Dueling Book with this. And shout out to the Fluffal Discord, actually. They've been a lot more helpful than you think.
All right. So I guess
And sorry
that's
for the very long deck.
yeah. So I guess that's it for the whole Fluffle profile. Congrats getting top four in the sevens Remote Duel League tournament. And if you're interested in this profile, this kind of content, feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see everyone in the lab in the future with more decks. See ya.